Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, I am Mateo311 and this is your one channel for everything VR related. Today, we're checking out the best games currently available on Viveport Infinity. Now Viveport Infinity is currently on sale at half price, and it's been 3 months since I've updated my Viveport recommendations. I'm gonna do the list a little bit different today and break it down into genre. If you do end up enjoying the list, don't forget to go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, consider subscribing. Okay guys, let's get into this. So I recently discussed this topic on the Beyond Realities podcast. Big shout out to those guys. But I found that my personal list wasn't really matching up with their list. There is a link in the description if you do want to see us discussing some of these games. Okay, let's get this list started with racing games. And first up is To The Top. Now this is an extreme speed climbing game that from outside appearance doesn't look like much, but when you are in game it is totally intense. There's an extreme parkour feel to this game, and once you get into it, you're not going to want to stop. So next up is Rush. Now this is a wingsuit racing game, and you're going to be jumping off cliffs and flying over beautiful landscapes. The multiple control and comfort options make this game fun and accessible to just about everyone, and this is a racing game that is uniquely suited to VR. So next, we're going to move into shooters. I'm going to separate that into some subcategories. The first one would be a battle royale style game called Airranger. This was originally named Walk on Arrow. After almost a year and a half, this game is still receiving frequent updates and still has an active player base, something you don't see too often on VR multiplayer games. It also has a very unique locomotion mechanic in which you will move across the map by shooting yourself via arrow. This ends up being an important gameplay mechanic, and battles can be truly intense, coming down to extremely precise aim. So next up, we have a wave shooter, and that is the Brookhaven Experiment. Now this game comes from the classic VR era, where we were overrun with nothing but wave shooters. It is, however, to this day, still a great game. You're gonna have creatures coming at you from every direction, and you're gonna try not to poop your pants. Now the next two shooters are free locomotion with additional RPG or roguelike elements. Those games include Sairento and Boiling Steel. Now there's only a light version of Sairento available on Viveport Infinity, but it's still worth checking out. Sairento allows you to be a superpowered ninja assassin, jumping all over the map in slow motion, killing waves of enemies in style. Now Boiling Steel is a story-driven shooter with randomized elements and over 10 hours of gameplay. This title also has some pretty unique combat mechanics. Alright, now we are moving into fighting games, and Creed Rise to Glory is an easy recommendation. Now this game actually has a campaign mode where you take on the role of Adonis Creed during his rise to glory. It's an intense and at times exhausting experience with intuitive fighting mechanics and even online multiplayer PvP. Now if you're looking for something a little bit less serious but just as exhausting, then check out Knockout League. This is a cartoon boxing game where you continue to fight more and more over-the-top creatures. You'll have to memorize fight patterns, when and how to block, dodge, and counter. It's not the longest game with only a handful of fights, but it's definitely worth checking out. So next up we have rhythm games, and here we have some great Beat Saber alternatives. Now first up is Synth Riders, and instead of swiping at blocks, you're going to be moving your hands to follow orbs across the screen. Now this ends up making you naturally dance to the beat of the song, and it turns into a much more dance-oriented game. Now if shaking it to the beat is not your style, another alternative is Ohshape, where rhythm can sorta go out the window and you'll be contorting your body into specific shapes in order to fit through oncoming obstacles. It's a completely different take on rhythm games, and it's a lot of fun to watch people try. Now if you wanted to head more into a workout-oriented title, then I would recommend PowerBeats VR. This game will have you punching oncoming objects, and you cannot wimp your way through it because your force will be measured. The game will reward you with unlockables over time, and there is a huge difference in physical intensity level between easy and hard. Easy will get your blood flowing, and hard will turn into extreme cardio mode. So next up, we have strategy games, and this first one is almost a VR launch title that I still recommend. Now that is, of course, I Expect You to Die. I know what you're thinking, it's not really a strategy game. I almost categorize it as a quirky escape room, but I couldn't find quirky escape room on the genre list. Category aside, this is a hilarious and addictively fun title. And just like the title implies, you're gonna be dying a lot, but at least every time you do, you should have a good laugh. Now the other strategy game I recommend is Final Assault. Now this is an army-based real-time strategy game, and one of the coolest elements is the fact that you get to stand in the middle of the battlefield and just take it all in. Watch your troops march into battle as planes fly overhead. Mechanically, it's pretty simplistic, but still a fun game. Now our next title, Viveport Infinity, has categorized in both strategy and RPG, and that is Axegend. Now this game is actually a lot like Orcs Must Die, but in VR. So defend your castle battling legions of goblins with some truly unique weapons. Now our next title is a true RPG, and that's the Morrigan. This game just recently left early access, and it's boasting some incredible graphics and engaging physics-based melee combat. There's also elements like bullet time, but with your bow and arrow. And if you're looking for some replayability, there is an arena mode where you could just jump in and fight waves of enemies. So next up we have two puzzle titles, and that includes Doctor Who: The Edge of Time and Proze Enlightenment. Doctor Who is pretty simplistic, but does have a creepy and compelling storyline that I think Doctor Who fans will really appreciate. Now, Proze Enlightenment is very similar in the fact that it is a creepy and intriguing puzzle game, but I feel like all aspects of it are turned up to 10. The game does not hold your hand at all. The storyline is even darker and creepier. I found it a bit more intriguing and also a lot harder. Now, if you are into puzzle exploration games, I do think you will enjoy either of these titles. Now, the next two titles are actually in the action genre on Viveport Infinity. The first one is Westworld Awakening. Now, this is a horror-themed puzzle and exploration game, one that plays very similar to the flat-screen game Outlast, except it's set in HBO's Westworld, and it ends up being a story-driven 3+ hour horror-themed game of hide and seek. If you're into horror games or Westworld, I really think you'll enjoy this title. Now the next action title is Pixel Ripped 1989. Now this is a game within a game. It ends up being split between an old school 2D platforming Nintendo-esque title and the world of the character actually playing that old school game. Overall, it's a blast and a rush of nostalgia. Now our last genre is VR experiences. Sometimes you just want to sit back, relax, and just watch something. And for that, I recommend The Great Sea and Bonefire. Both are short but sweet. The Great Sea has some truly creepy undertones to it, with excellent narratives and cinematics, while Bonefire, on the other hand, is just a hilarious time. It had me laughing hysterical, and the animations had me dying for someone to start creating an anime series in VR. Okay guys, that concludes our updated list of the best Viveport Infinity titles. Now let me know in the comments below if I missed any of your recommendations. And if you ended up finding this video informative or entertaining, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're new, consider subscribing. Okay guys, I'll see you on next time.